Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem. So inshallah in this lesson we're going to be going through two new terms, very important terms. It's Al-Munkar and Al-Ma'ruf. Okay? This is the hadith. Okay, it says Kulul balaha bit-tamri, kulul khalaqa bil-jadidi, فإن الشيطان يغضب ويقول بقي ابن آدم حتى أكل الخلق بالجديد. But it's supposed to be a hadith. It says, eat unripe dates with ripe dates, and eat old dates with new dates, because Shaitan becomes angry and he says, the son of Adam will remain and prosper as long as he eats old dates with new dates. Okay? What does this mean? You can look at it later on. Okay. Now, what's happening here? What's the stain of this? Is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's supposed to have said this hadith. The narrator from him is Ummuna Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu ta'ala anha. From her, you have her nephew Abdullah ibn Zubair. Remember Aisha is the sister of Asma, and Asma's husband is Zubair, Urwa ibn Zubair. So that's a nephew. A nephew, and her grandnephew, Hisham ibn Urwa, from his father. From that you have Yahya ibn Muhammad ibn Qais al-Madani. Then you have Abu Bishr, Bakr ibn Khalaf, and then you have Ibn Majah. So this is found in Ibn Majah's hadith. Now, what do we have here? We have Yahya ibn Muhammad ibn Qais al-Madani, and he's Khafif al-Dhabt. Okay? So, yes? Are you following? So, what happens is, if you have, so one definition of munkar, another coming out later on, there's many definitions of munkar. Munkar is used many places. You have to remember, the reason is, remember all of the definitions are established from, what do you call it? Just naturally. Like for example, in football, players who play on the wing called wingers. But what if you never call it a winger, you call it a side man? Instead of having you have a midfielder and a forward, why not have a side fielder? It's just the word is developed. What if there was two countries playing football, major countries, and in one country was called winger, and one country was called a sider? You'll have two words in it. It's just how things develop naturally. So munkar means something what in qawmun munkarun, something this looks strange, we're not really familiar with this. So munkar, one way is that if somebody narrates a hadith and he's khafif al-dhabt, but he's the only person narrating the hadith, this is meaning it's fard mutlaq. So if there's a fard mutlaq from a weak narrator, not a weak, but either khafif al-dhabt to weak narrator, and he's such a person, I don't trust him on his own. I can use him as supporting evidence, but I wouldn't make him the main. I don't trust him as a primary source for a hadith, because he has many things he narrates which are questionable. This is called munkar. So this Rawi, Yahya ibn Muhammad ibn Qais al-Madani, he's an issue here. That the ulama and the ulama of ilm al-hadith, what do they say regarding him? They say that he is not somebody who we would trust when he's the only person narrating. Supporting evidence is fine, but as the only source, we have reservations regarding that. Now this hadith, you could say, well, the hadith has, I don't know what the shara of the hadith. They don't think this hadith is munkar. He narrates a hadith which doesn't fit any principle, it doesn't fit with the other narrations. There's no such meaning of this in any, this concept of eating ripe dates and unripe dates and old and new. This kind of concept, this idea is not found in any other hadith. So these words and this idea, he's the only person that narrates this. So this is a munkar hadith. We will not take this. Or this is a da'if. Because he's not somebody who can narrate something which is new or strange and we just take it, because he's not that level. This is Hasan. This becomes da'if, because munkar, isn't it? He's not khafi. So the reason, so on its own is Hasan. Good question. On its own, without looking at the meaning, without looking at this sanad is what? Hasan. Why? On an assumption that, I'm telling you it's fine, this is fine. On an assumption, I don't know about him. If he is thiqa, then this hadith is good. Even if he's thiqa or khafif al-zabt, and he has no other faults, what's his sanad going to be? Hasan. Because it has khafif al-zabt narrators, isn't it? Even if he's thiqa khafif al-zabt. But there's another aspect, another layer on top of this. What's the other layer? The topic of the hadith is such that nobody else narrates it. So khafif al-dhabt narrators narrating something which is very strange or not mentioned in other narrators. The thiqah haven't mentioned this topic or this idea, this concept, or these words anywhere. So this drops now what? To that is called a munkar. So it falls under like shudud kind of. No, it falls under illah. It has an illah in this hadith. The illah is what? It's a munkar. Meaning what? It's not something that the ulama, the general ulama have accepted. Do you understand? Are you following? Okay. This is what he's saying here. وَالْمُنْكَرُ الْفَرْدُ بِهِ رَاوٍ غَدَى. A munkar is a fard. Meaning what? A hadith is what? A fard meaning what? Fard mutlaq or ghari mutlaq. Meaning a hadith only narrated by one person. غَدَى بِهِ رَاوٍ أي راوٍ واحد, which only one narrator has taken. What do we have? A narration, we have a munkar is that fard mutlaq or that ghari mutlaq, which one narrator has taken. Correct? What kind of narrator? This is the nat. This here is the nat. This is the nat of the rawi. What kind of rawi is he? What kind of rawi is he? He is a rawin. تعديله لا يحمل التفرد. Ta'dil meaning what? The process of declaring someone adil and dhabit. That's called ta'dil. And opposite that is jarh. So when we say the rawi has to be adil and have dhabt, so when somebody says, oh yeah, he's adil, or he's level 1, or he's level 2, or he's really good, or he's really poor, or really weak, that's called ta'dil and jarh, like his categorization. So there's such a rawi, ta'diluhu la yahmilu tafarruda. His what do you call it? His clarification or his ta'dil, meaning his announcing him to be adil or dhabit, la yahtim tafarrud, is not such a level which can bear tafarrud, can bear being mutlaq. What does this mean? That there's a hadith, one narrator, and that narrator not at such a level where we can say, yes, even if he alone says this, we trust him. He's not like Malik or Shafi'i or Al-Bukhari or Ibn Uyayna or Sufyan al-Thawri or one of those people. Are you following me? So he's not one of those great imams that even if he's the only person narrating that, he knows his stuff. His memory, his preservation is such that we can trust him even if he's the only person. So yes, he's not a liar, he's not kadhib, he's not really, really weak, but he's not of that level where we would use him as the only witness. Do you understand? This is one definition of al-munkar. Understood? Does this make sense to everybody? So the first definition of munkar, or one way munkar is used, is if there's a ghari mutlaq, and that the person who's doing this ghari mutlaq, he is not of the level where we can trust him totally and bear that we can put the hadith on him and say, yes, he's the only person narrating hadith that we trust him. Do you understand the masala? Yes, are you following? So the text is al-munkar is mubtada, yes, is a fard. Then so this is the mubtada, and this is the khabar, and the khabar has the khabar goes to the end. Within the khabar you have a mubtada again, and then you have the khabar. The khabar is a jumla. Is al-fardu ghada bihi rawin ta'diluhu la yahmilu tafarruda. So a munkar is a fard mutlaq which a single narrator has taken. Ghada bihi has taken. Went set off with it. Whose ta'dil is not of the level that can take or bear tafarrud. And that's a translation, but the concept is what? That he's not of the level whose tafarrud is taken. Is that clear? Do you understand the idea? So that's why, G, go ahead. Yes, if the matan of the hadith is standalone, wait, we can't just like look at every hadith like this. But the theory is, if there's a standalone matan and the sanad supporting it, we'll have one person who it depends upon. If it's not a mashhud, You have what you call, you have one person who it links upon. For example, I can't remember in the hadith of Al-Bayqooniyyah, everything depends upon what? Yahya ibn Sa'id, isn't it? Was it Yahya ibn Sa'id? It depends upon. So if you go back to the narration that we mentioned before of Al-Bayqooniyyah, in there, everything depended on whom? That one narrator. But in all of them before that, we have who narrated from Ibn al-Khattab? Al-Qalam ibn Waqqas al-Laythi. He's tafarrud, isn't it? But his ta'adil yahmil tafarruda. Even if he's the only person narrating it, we say, okay, yeah, we know him, he's okay. Yes? Because many of the hadiths are fard mutlaq, isn't it? But these people, the text, the concept, for example, the concept and the sanad, the people are such that even if they're the only one narrating, we can still trust him. But sometimes you have a hadith, a matan, where the sanad does not support it, or is not strong enough to support this unique concept or this idea in the text, and that Rawi himself is not of that level. So let's say for example, if you have the same sanad, right? And this sanad is innamal a'malu binniyat, or this hadith another thing that all, let's say al-amalu binniyati, ya la yaqbalu Allahu al-amala illa bil ikhlas, for example, argument say, let's say that's a wording. Now this will become hasan because it's the idea of a'mal with ikhlas, sincerity is backed up, isn't it? It's a tafarrud in words, but not tafarrud in meaning. So it may not drop to the level of da'if. It can be said, well, this meaning comes in other hadiths as well. So that will have some kind of, but this how to eat dates, old and new and all that kind of stuff, this is nothing mentioned anywhere else. So the word is strange and the meaning is strange. This word is not been narrated by anybody else, nor has the meaning. And this person is not on a level that we can say, well, you said it, so we'll trust you altogether. No, this needs some analysis, and this is now munkar. We'll continue tomorrow, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. So, alhamdulillah, yesterday we went through one definition of munkar. And today, munkar is basically the same as a hadith gharib or hadith fard, but within which the narrator, or one of the narrators, who's a single narrator, they are such that they cannot be relied upon to do the tafarrud of that riwayah. Are you following me? We gave an example yesterday where there's a hadith, the only person narrating that hadith is whom? One narrator who is a weak narrator. So the legend is khafif al-dhabt. So that's one definition of gharib. Now one thing, munkar, sorry. Now one thing you have to remember in mustalah al-hadith or usul al-hadith is that these terms, there are two things. One is that the terms that we're learning here may not necessarily be the terms that the very earliest scholars had used exactly. Do you understand? So for example, you may have meaning of munkar that most people use, but Imam Bukhari uses it slightly different, rahimahullah, or Imam Muslim uses it slightly different. So you have to keep that in mind. And number two, sometimes one word is used for multiple meanings. Munkar is used here for this meaning, but munkar may also another meaning, because the original meaning munkar is what qawmun munkarun, somebody we're not aware, familiar with, like it seems strange. So they may use another thing which is also strange, or which is also a bit abnormal. Do you understand? So one term, especially in Mustalah al-Hadith, one word munkar may come for a few scenarios. Okay. Now let's have a look here, and we're looking at the second way the word munkar is used. So here we have the Sahabi, Anna Sa'ba ibn Jathama. So the companion's name is Sa'b ibn Jathama. He says that Ahda lin Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ajuza himari wahshin, ya himarin wahshin. That Sa'b ibn Jathama radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he gave the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam the back end or the back of a wild donkey. Now, when I say wild donkey, this means like, remember those are not scientific terms, they have a lot of vocabulary for these kind of things. So meaning something of the donkey species, which is what? Wild. So similar like horse, donkey, you have like similar, so you can we have like particular names for all of them. They might have, so himar wash doesn't mean like a donkey that we have that's wild. It's like from that kind of genus. Okay. وَهُوَ بِالْجُحْفَةِ. Whilst the Prophet ﷺ was in Juhfa, that's the place when the Prophet approached, he was in Ihram. So he doesn't mention here, but he was in Ihram. فَأَكَلَ مِنْهُ, he ate from it, meaning the Prophet ﷺ ate from it, وَأَقَلَ الْقَوْمِ, and the other people around him ate from the himar wash. Now what comes in Surah Ma'idah? غير محل الصيد وأنتم حرم. So whilst you're in a state of ihram, you should not do a hunt. So whether hunting is a masala, what if somebody hunted for you and then you consume the meat? We don't hunt yourself. It's not a fiqhi masala. But for now, the hadith is that Asab ibn Jatham, he gave it to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ consumed it. Yes? Now this hadith is narrated from Amr ibn Umayyah al-Dhamari. He narrates it from Ja'far ibn Amr, his son, ibn Umayyah al-Dhamari. He narrates it from, well, obviously, sorry, Yahya al-Sa'id narrates it from him. And from him, Yahya ibn Ayyub narrates it. From him, we have Abdullah ibn Wahab. And from him, we have Yahya ibn Sulaiman. This is the chain of narrators that we have for this hadith. Correct? Now, Yahya ibn Ayyub is what? Khafif al-Dhabt. And Yahya ibn Sulaiman is also Khafif al-Dhabt. The Khafif al-Dhabt word is not a normal term that is used, like the ulama use, but because it fits in line with what we're using, the hadith sahih and the hasan. They have words like layyun al-hadith and that kind of stuff. But for now, it's going to do simple. It's khafif al-dhab, meaning a lower level. Okay? Now, if you look at another hadith. So remember in mahfuz and chaz, we had contradictory things. But in there was one fiqh versus another fiqh. Or one fiqh versus more fiqh. Here we have a scenario that is what? A khafif al-dhab, not a fiqh or a tam al-zab, but a khafif al-zab versus fiqh. You see, same scenario, but the oppositions are different. So in here we have Sa'b ibn Jatham, it says, he gave to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himaran wahshiyan, wa huwa bil abwa. Where was he? Abwa, not Juhfa. Or bi Waddan. Waddan is close by, outside of Madinah Munawwara. فَرَدَّهُ عَلَيْهِ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. The previous hadith says what? فَأَكَلَ مِنْهُ. And this hadith says, فَرَدَّهُ عَلَيْهِ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam rejected it, said what? No. فَلَمَّا رَأَى رَسُولُ اللَّهِ مَا فِي وَجْهِهِ. So Sa'b ibn Jathama says that when, obviously, if you give someone a gift and they refuse it, you feel a bit. So the Prophet realized in my face, I felt a bit. The Prophet said, إِنَّا لَمْ نَرُدَّهُ عَلَيْكَ إِلَّا أَنَّا حُرُمْ. Like, I don't have a problem with you, or it's nothing personal, it's just that we're in ihram. And in ihram, I can't have the himar wahshi is what? Sayd. So I'm not allowed to have this. So the fiqh masala on the side is another masala altogether. But this hadith we have Ibn Abbas, Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah, Az-Zuhri, and Malik, and Shafi'i. Yes? So now we can see this Shafi, Malik, Zuhri. So you know Malik. Zuhri is also from the narrator of Bukhari, Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah, and Abdullah ibn Abbas. So this chain is stronger. So this chain says the Prophet rejected it. And the top chain shows what? What does the top chain show? He ate it. So now what do we have? We have two contradictory hadiths, don't we? So now, if we were not able to give preference to one, what would this hadith have been? Anyone? If we were not able to give preference, let's say they were both, we couldn't differentiate which one was stronger, what would we have done? We call this hadith what? Mustari, very good. If they were both thiqah, and we said, well, Malik and Zuhri is stronger, this would have been what? This would have been? And the previous one would have been Shaz, Mahfuz and Shaz. But because the previous one is Khafif al-Dhab and this is a thiqah, this one is now called what? The top one is called Munkar. That's not the definition of Munkar. The top one is called what? Munkar, and this one is called Mahfuz. No, Ma'ruf. Ma'ruf. It's called Ma'ruf. You understand? So you compare them. فَأَكَلَ مِنْهُ وَأَكَلَ الْقَوْمِ. And there's فَرَدَّهُ. Now this can't be reconciled. It can't be say, well, both things happen. Same Sahabi, he gave a gift. One of them says he take it, one says he didn't take it. So now we say here what? It's hard to reconcile between this. If you can't reconcile it, it's istirab. But it's not istirab because we say, well, the second one from Malik, from Shafi, Malik, and from Shafi, Malik, Az-Zuhri, and Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah, from Abdullah ibn Abbas is much stronger. So that's why we say that one is a ma'ruf, and that one is a ma'ruf, and this one is a munkar. The one on the right is a munkar. Understood? Are you following? Yes? Understood? Everybody following? So now we have our recap again. Shall we go over again? Ready? So we have a hadith sanad. Bi'tibari siha, what do we have? What are the three? Quickly. Sahih, Hasan, and Da'if. The main difference between Hasan and Sahih is what? Yeah, we have Tamul Dhab and Khafiful Dhab. That's the difference between the three of them in this category. Then, باعتبار من أضيف إليه, relative to the person who's narrating the hadith, you have what? Marfu', Mawquf, Maqtu'. And what's the hadith Musnad? Online, your voice not coming through very clearly. I'm not sure if it's me or if it's... Yeah, Marfu' Muttasil is Musnad. Then, if you have many, according to number of narrators, what do you have? Come on, everybody get involved. You have what? Mutawatir. Then, Mashhur. Then we have Aziz. Then we have Gharib. Gharib is also known as Fard. And Fard has how many types? Yeah, Mutlaqan, Nisbi. Sometimes you get bored of it. It's like, oh no, that's how you're supposed to know it. Because these terms come in the books of hadith, you need to know them. We have Mutawatir. Then we have Mashhur. Mashhur is how many narrators? 3 or more. Aziz is 2. And Gharib is 1. And Gharib Mutlaq means there's only one. And Gharib Nisbi means there's one thiqa, or one from this city, or one from this, or one from this relative. Okay? باعتبار الاتصال والانقطاع. Hadith, if all the links are joined together, it's called muttasil. If the sahabi is missing, it's called mursal. If the beginning of the chain, one or more is missing, it's called mu'allaq. If 2 are missing, it's called mu'adhal. And if any other breakage apart from the previous one, it's called munqati'. And the muttasil can have what kind of chain? Ali or nazil. Ali mean what? A shorter chain relative to another chain of the same matan. And nazil means the opposite one. The same chain, same matan, but this one has more narrators. Mudallas, what's mudallas? When you narrate from somebody who you could have heard it from, but you haven't heard that particular hadith. So that's hadith mudallas. And then according to the sigha that the narrator used to narrate the hadith, it can either be what? What can it be? Sarih fi sama', that is clear and explicit that he has heard this narration. Yes? And what do you use for that? Haddathana, akhbarana, sami'tu, qala li, anba'ana. And then you have those that are not sarih fi sama', they are muhtamil. They can mean sama', but it's not clear. What are these? What are two of these? An-ana and an-ana. And an-ana is called mu'annan, and an-ana is called mu'annan. It's called mu'annan. And what's the ma'yu of the hadith? You have a hadith can be mubham. So, and linked to mubham, what do we have? What does mubham mean? Yeah, you just say rajulun or shaykhun or rajulun min bani fulan. Yes. Mudallas is when? The second type of mudallas is when? You mentioned the shaykh in a way he's not necessarily known. Muttafiq wa muftariq. What is muftariq? What does that mean? This is the new one now. Yeah, when the enunciation and the writing is the same, it's muttafiq and muftariq. What is it? Muttafiq and muftariq. They're the same in the enunciation and writing, but muftariq, they have different masadiq, mistaq, different persons referring to. And then mu'talif and mukhtalif is what? The names are written the same, but they are pronounced differently. What's shaz and mahfuz? 2 hadith, one that contradictory, they can't be reconciled. So the one that's more thiqa is known as more thiqa, mahfuz. And the one that is the marju, the less preferred, is called the shaz. If you can't differentiate between the two of them, it's called what? Mustarib. And if one is khafiful dhab and the other one is thiqa, it's called what then? We done today, munkar and ma'ruf. And if you go back over here to the gharib fard mutlaq, if the fard mutlaq, the one person narrating it is what? He is layyinul hadith, and there is layyinul hadith or even da'iful hadith, sayyul hifz, or some question regarding him, and he's the only person narrating that meaning, and the hadith also becomes what? Munkar. So munkar has two ways it's being used. Qal, what does qal mean? When the sanad and the matan order has been swapped around with an istirab, mustarib, and then mu'allal is when you have a hidden defect. Okay. One example I was reading of a hidden defect is, for example, you have 2 thiqa narrators. One was Hushaym, and I can't remember the other person after him. So Hushaym is thiqa, the one after him is thiqa, they've met, they've done ittisal. If you look at it, all the conditions are found. What is it? The adala, there's thiqa, there's ittisalu sanad, there's no shudud, but there's no shudud, but there's an illah. And if you look at anything, you will not find it. What was the illah? That when this person narrated from this sheikh, he went there, he heard him, noted these nothing. But when he left that gathering, when he was traveling back, he was showing somebody his notes and the wind blew. And because of that, all the notes got what? Mixed up. So even though he's a thiqa rawi, they say when he narrates from this sheikh, we don't take his hadith. Because his notes got blown away, his notes got mixed up and blown away, something got lost, something got mixed up, and some things he tried to recall from his memory. And so that's thiqa rawi, from this sheikh, he's not thiqa. He's not thiqa, he's not dhabt, he doesn't have dhabt, and it's not his personal fault, but the paper's got, the dhabt is credible. On this one is one scenario. And now you not know that unless you go all deep into all the people, all the early ulama who collected all of this knowledge. That's one example of an illah. Everybody understand? Okay. Any questions? Okay. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.